Today I'm going to be going over all the books that I would like to reread. I would like to read these at some point in my reading life because either these books changed my life, they got me back into reading, I just thought they were really beautiful, or I just really connected with the story, or maybe I just had a really fun time or loved the writing. These are a list of 17 books, okay? I have 17 books here to talk with you guys about. Let's just go ahead and get right into it. The first book that I read, it was actually like my first classic as an adult. I absolutely loved this book, okay? I read Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, okay? So, I did not really know much of what the internet was saying about this book when I read it. I actually have this cute little mass market paperback. I thrifted this. I love to get most of my books secondhand. I do buy new books, but I really do love to buy secondhand books when I can. I got this at the thrift store, and I love how old it is. I think this is probably one of my top 3 favorite classics I've ever read. So you follow Frankenstein, who is Victor Frankenstein, who is the scientist, but then you also follow his creation. And a lot of people think that Frankenstein is the monster when it actually is the scientist who created the monster. His name is Frankenstein and he is actually the monster. It's really a story about like being alive and being human and humanity and how like horrible people can be. Honestly, there's a lot to dissect in this book. And I'm not even going to go into it all right now. This is a book that I definitely would love to reread because it was my first classic. I think you can get a lot more out of the story the more times that you read it, and this is one I'm really excited to read again. Mary Shelley wrote this when she was 18, which I think is just literally blows my mind because when I was 18, I was not writing Frankenstein. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley is the first one I'd like to reread. A second classic that I would like to reread is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I don't know how to say her name. I think about this book still. This book literally lives in my brain. I want to read this again for the first time if I could. Every time I hear the song The Last Great American Dynasty by Taylor Swift, I literally think about this book. It just like, the images were in my head like a movie when I was reading this. This is a classic, but do not be intimidated by this. People say that you can read Frankenstein and not feel intimidated, but I'm not gonna lie to you. I think people might be lying to you because I think this one actually is a little bit intimidating. The words are a little bit old, so it takes a bit to get into this one. But this one, the words are old, but to me it felt a lot easier to read, and that might be because I was just a little bit further in my reading journey, so maybe that's why. But I really believe Rebecca was pretty easy to understand. Once you kind of get used to the writing, it flows really well. The writing is gorgeous, and I absolutely love the gothicness of this. I really love gothic books, and I think that's something that I kind of forget that I like. But this one follows this girl. She is an unnamed narrator. There is this man, and he comes in and starts speaking and talking with this young girl, the unnamed narrator, and he brings her back to his home, and Rebecca is his past wife. She is no longer living. There's like secrets, and there's Rebecca, who is kind of like haunting the place, but it's not scary, okay? It's more like literary, like gothic beautifulness. Like, it's so good, and I just still think about this book, and I definitely think you should read Rebecca. I think it's so good, and I want to reread this in the fall because that's a good time to read this, is in the fall, by the way. Yeah, I really want to reread this. So that is Rebecca. The next book I would like to reread is The Idiot by Elif Botman. I also am saying this incorrectly. I'm gonna like mess up everybody's names. I'm sorry. The Idiot. Okay. This is a book. This is a lit fic book. It kind of perfectly describes my taste in lit fic. I really do love a lit fic with a meandering plot, not a lot going on, very character driven. This is set in 1995, and it follows a girl named Celine. She is a daughter of Turkish immigrants, so she's arriving at her freshman year at Harvard, and it's basically just following her in school and like her like relationship with this guy named Ivan. She kind of like has feelings for him, but like she doesn't really know where he stands, and they just kind of like talk, and then he'll kind of ghost her. I feel like it really just encapsulates just this girl's life in college, and then she goes abroad, and it's just, I really enjoyed this book. There's a second book called Either Or, which is also by the same author, but I really recommend The Idiot. I really loved this one, but you have to be okay with a slow moving plot because there's really not a lot pushing the story forward. You're just kind of following Celine, and I loved that. I felt like I really knew Celine by the end of this. I felt like I was her friend. I just really loved Celine by the end of this, and I feel like you might too. So definitely check out The Idiot if this piques your interest. A lot of people are either like, I love this book, or they're like, I hate this book. And that is Bunny by Mona Awad. I was definitely on team. I love this book. Okay. This book is a trip, okay? When you read this book, you are not gonna know what's going on. You are so confused. I don't even know how to describe this book. You just kind of have to go in blind, but you have to know that it's a little weird, it's a little out there, it's a little different. It has magical realism in it, which I really like in my books. It basically follows this girl, and she basically, like, she does not like this group of girls, right? I'm not like other girls, I don't like them. And then one day, she gets kind of invited in with the girls, and she decides, okay. And she kind of was very intrigued, and she wants to go see what they're about. And they're kind of into some weird things, and a lot of weird things happen. But when I was reading this, I literally could not put it down, and I was like, what is going on? Mona Awad's mind is really strange, but you just kind of have to like go with the flow and just kind of take it as it is. And honestly, I really want to read this again because it was so weird in the best way possible, because I like weird, and it kind of felt like an A24 movie, if you know what I mean. So if you like A24 movies, maybe check this out. I would say this is horror, but it's definitely not like scary. It's not going to keep you up at night. It's kind of more literary horror, which I really do enjoy. It's definitely a little out there. The writing was also really good. I really liked this one. Okay, the next book I'm going to talk about is kind of not really a book, it's more so an author. I really love Sally Rooney. I am a Sally Rooney girly, okay? I love Sally Rooney, and I loved Normal People when I read this. This is not a romance. This is a lit fic about two people that keep missing each other. They keep like reconnecting at different parts in their lives. Marianne and Connell, it's following them. It's very toxic. It's not something to be romanticized, but I really did love this book. It definitely has mental health representation. I felt like I could relate to the characters. They are imperfect people. This is not my favorite Sally Rooney, actually. I will go about that in another video, what my favorite Sally Rooney is, but I still really love Normal People. This was the first one I read by her. My copy is a little bit beat up. Now, Sally Rooney is another author that some people like, some people don't like. She doesn't have any like punctuation, like quotation marks when people are talking, and a lot of people don't like that about her books. Honestly, I love it when that is an element in a book. I don't know what it is. Whenever I find an author that writes with no like punctuation like that, I think it's really cool, and it reminds me of Sally Rooney and my experiences when I read Sally Rooney books. Again, there's not a whole lot of plot in this. Kind of more character driven. She's an Irish author, and I really like Irish books. I am learning. So definitely check out Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is not a recommendation video. I keep saying check these out, but I definitely think you should read it. But Normal People is a book I would like to reread in the near future. Okay, the next book that I am going to talk about is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This book, I don't have a whole lot to say. This is a Japanese translated fiction book. It has magical realism in it. It's about a coffee shop. You sit in the coffee shop. You have to sit in a specific seat. It takes you back in time, and you cannot change anything. You can't get up out of your seat, and if you want to get back, you have to get back before the coffee gets cold. And it has like a bunch of little short stories. I believe they all kind of have a connection. I mean, they do, because oh, this is a bookmark that I thought I lost. I would like to reread this. It's very short and sweet. There are a couple of these books, so I would like to reread this. This wasn't my all-time favorite when I read it the first time, although I do like Japanese translated fiction, but I think that I would like to try this again, and it might have just been the wrong time for me. I think I actually switched to audio on this, and I kind of regret that because I think it altered my reading experience with this. So this is one that I would like to read again physically, since I already have it on my shelf, and I think I might give it a higher rating next time around. Okay, the next book, I will not talk about this very long, but this is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This book is absolutely crazy. This is a book that I want to read again because now that I know what I know in the end, I think it's gonna make the whole book that much better, if you know what I mean. This is a book that I recommend going in knowing absolutely nothing. I think you just need to read this and experience it for what it is. Like, I think this is considered a fantasy, but I read this before I really got into fantasy books, and I don't even know. Like, it's just, yeah. You should read Piranesi. That's all I'm going to say, because I truly think you should go into this blind. It's basically just about this guy named Piranesi, and he's in this like labyrinth, and he doesn't really know how he got there. And I think that's all you need to know, really. I think you should just read this and let me know what you think, because I think I would love to read this a second time, and I think it will be fun to know what I know in the end when I read it the second time. So, Piranesi. This one is A Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I really, really loved this book when I read it. I gave it like a 3-star though, okay? Because I was really new to fantasy when I read this, but I think if I were to reread this today, I think I would have a higher rating. So this is a book that I really think I enjoyed, but I think I will enjoy now more that I am more into this genre. So this is basically about this girl. She basically, in the very beginning, she like grows up in this magical library. She gets accused of something, and she basically is on the run. I'm gonna reread this and I'll get back to you guys. Next is The Cruel Prince. I would love to reread the Cruel Prince series. This is about Jude. Guys, I can't remember plots of books. There's Faye, and there's Faye in this. And, okay, so there's Jude, and she gets taken away from her family. She gets sent to the fairyland, and they basically, like, the Fae do not like humans. There's Cardan and Jude, and I love Cardan and Jude. I love these books. I love them so much. I want to reread them. I'm not very good at explaining. It's a trilogy. Definitely pick these up. They're very good. They're young adult. They're very quick reads. The next book that I love is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I absolutely loved this book. This is about this girl named Emily. She studies Fae, and there are little Fae in this book, and it's so cute. This is definitely a little literary. Like, I think the writing is very beautiful. It's a little slow. There is still conflict in this book. It's not completely cozy, but it is, I feel like, a little bit leaning on the cozy side. But I love this book. I thought it was so good. There's a little bit of a romance that goes on in here between Emily and Wendell Brambleby. I absolutely ate this up, and I will be rereading this at some point. We are getting to a nonfiction. I read Upstream by Mary Oliver. This was my first and only Mary Oliver. I would like to read more of her work. She is a poet. This is selected essays about nature. I recommend reading this outside. I read this over time. I read a little bit every day. You can see there's like a lot of little tabs that I like tabbed the bottom pages of things that I just really liked that I read in this. Honestly, I just really enjoy her writing, and I would love to revisit this one day, and I definitely recommend it, especially if you like writing about nature. It's very beautiful, and I just loved kind of reading her thoughts and her essays. The next book that I would like to reread is, we're getting kind of into my thrillers, okay? I'm not a thriller girly, right? I'm not. This is a book, though, that I would love to revisit. This is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. Ian Reid is definitely one of my favorite like thriller writers. He definitely writes more literary. They're very psychological, but they also are short and quick, and I like that about them. And then they do have you like mind blown by the end, and it definitely is dark, so check trigger warnings. I'm not a dark reader, okay? So like, I read it and I was okay, and I definitely think it would be fun to reread this. I don't know. I could reread it and say, it's not as good as I thought. I don't know, but we'll see when we get there. Okay, so this is a book that I read and I was like, okay, I like to read. Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. He is a sci-fi writer, but he writes a little bit more sci-fi thriller-y type books. He makes the sci-fi very easy to understand, so I would not be intimidated of the sci-fi part of this. You can read it if you don't read sci-fi and just treat it like a thriller. I would like to reread this because it was a book that got me back into like really reading, and I think it'd be fun to read this again and just kind of, I don't know, it's like I know what happens, but I think it's one of those where now that I know what happens, I think it'd be kind of cool to watch it again from the very beginning and just know how it ends. It's one of those where I do believe you should go in knowing nothing. It's basically this guy, and he like wakes up and he's in this car, right? So he goes home and his wife and kid are like not his wife and kid, right? Like, that's weird. So he doesn't understand what's going on, but he does not recognize his wife. It's like she's been replaced. And I think that's all you need to know going into this. Literally. Like, that's all you need to know. So, read this. It's really crazy, but it's really good. Last books are books that really were in the beginning of my getting back into reading journey. You have heard probably about all of these, right? So I saved them for last because I know that most people have heard about these, but they're definitely books that I still really would love to reread. So we got Emily Henry, right? Okay, everybody loves her. She's our favorite romance author, okay? Emily Henry, she's a queen. We got Beach Read and we got People We Meet on Vacation. I put People We Meet on Vacation on this list, but then I added on Beach Read, okay? So we're gonna start with People We Meet on Vacation. Poppy and Alex are really fun. This is more of a rom-com. I had a really good time with it, but it wasn't my favorite, but I didn't know how much I loved Emily Henry at the time. So I think if I were to read this after knowing how much I love her, I think I will have a better appreciation for this. Basically, it follows Poppy and Alex. So this is kind of a friends to lovers story. She takes him, I can't even really remember, but she takes him on vacation with him. They used to always go on vacation together, and something happens, so you find out, you know, later on what happens, and it's cute. So I would like to reread this. Next is Daisy Jones and the Six. This book is told in interview format, I think loosely inspired by Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks. And Daisy is a singer-songwriter, and she basically becomes a part of this band called The Six. I loved this book. I do recommend this book. This was also a book that got me back into reading. I picked this up from the bookstore and I was like, okay, this is good. This is really good. Books are fun. So read this if you are newer to reading. It's definitely really easy to get into. And there's just, you know, the drama of being in a band and the seriousness of that and relationships and friendships. And it's kind of like a found family a little bit. There's a really good TV show that Reese Witherspoon produced, and I definitely recommend watching the show because it is very good. The final book on my list is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This is the book that got me back into reading, okay? I read this book, I fell in love with this book. This book changed my life, you could say. I read it on my Kindle. I didn't know what BookTok, BookTube, Bookstagram was. I just read this because I saw it recommended and I picked it up, and it completely changed my life. And that, I say that really dramatically, but reading has really been a good outlet for me, and I love reading. I love books. I love escaping into a story. This has magical realism in it. It's about a girl. She makes a deal really late at night with a god, and she basically accidentally gets like cursed, and she can't be remembered by anybody. Her family forgets her. Everybody forgets her. They turn around, they come back and look at her, and they've already forgotten who she is. She cannot be remembered, and that is heartbreaking because she is so lonely. And then finally somebody remembers her, and there's romance. There is this book is so beautiful. I really think everybody should read this book. It's definitely a slow burn. I can't believe I got this. This got me back into reading, so that really shows that I really do love character-driven stories because the plot is slow. It's so slow, but it's so good, and it's stunning. this is a book that I will be rereading because I absolutely am in love with this book and this story. And I've been scared to reread it because I'm scared it's going to change. I'm going to change my opinion after reading for, it's been what, 3 years? 3 or 4 years. Like, it's kind of scary because I'm worried that my opinion will change. I feel like it is time for me to revisit the story, and I don't think my opinion will change. I think I will still love this book because it's really close to my heart and I love this, and so I really want other people to read this too. I know it's really popular. I'm not the first person to tell you this, but The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is very, very good. It also has a little bit of historical fiction elements because it takes place in 1714, so she's really old, but she doesn't age. So it goes through time of her living in New York and her meeting people and then them not remembering her, and it goes into present day, and it's really beautiful. So I would like to reread this and just re-experience my feelings. I cried at the end of this. I just want to re-experience everything that I felt when I read this book for the first time. I wish I could read this for the first time again, but I can't, so a reread will be alright, I guess. So those are all of the books that I would love to reread at some point. This is a really big stack. There's like 17 here, but thank you for watching, and maybe I can start rereading some of these soon. I would love to start with some Emily Henry's this summer. I think that would be really fun. And then probably Addie LaRue. I feel like I should go ahead and give her a reread as soon as I can. So thank you again for watching. I will see y'all with another video soon. Bye.